All right, good morning. Looks like everything's working great now. And I've got lesson 240 for you. Thanks for joining me here on Clubhouse. Really excited to read today's. We've been getting into the second half of the book, and we've been working through special theme number 2. And this is the last day in this 10-day series. This special theme covers what is salvation. And yesterday, I read directly from the books that we have. Today, I'm going to read Tom's notes on this special section. And then I'm going to read the lesson. I'm going to read the little note about the lesson. And then Tom's going to lead us in a little activity. And we're going to have a great day. We'll have a discussion here. Try and bring this a little bit more to life and see how it can help us on a day-to-day basis. Make life better. All right, the central theme for lessons 231 to 240. Salvation is a promise made by God that you would find your way to God at last. God is truth with a capital T. By substituting the word truth for God, salvation becomes a promise made by God that you would find your way to truth at last. Since truth is true and what is false is not true, truth must become our reality. Salvation guarantees that time will end, and with it, all egoic illusions of lack, limitation, and separation will dissolve, and only the truth of the unity and love of the one self will remain. God knows what He is. The natural state of mind is to know itself. Excuse me for one moment. All right. Since truth is true and what is false is not true, truth must become our reality. Salvation guarantees that time will end, and with it, all egoic illusions of lack, limitation, and separation will dissolve, and only the truth of the unity and love of the one self will remain. God knows what He is. The natural state of mind is to know itself. A mind that claims it does not know itself is a mind that is asleep. A mind that is awake knows what it is and has no identity crisis. It is impossible not to be what you are. An example of Mr. Smith might best illustrate this point. Mr. Smith can only be Mr. Smith. He cannot be a dog. Mr. Smith can pretend he's a dog, but his pretense does not transform him magically into a dog. Mr. Smith remains a man pretending that he's a dog. He retains his true reality as a human being called Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith's denial of who he is does not change the truth that he still is Mr. Smith. Similarly, we are God's beloved child with whom God is well pleased. We remain as God created us, perfect, whole, and complete. Like Mr. Smith, we can deny the truth and pretend that we don't know what we are. Yet we still remain God's beloved child, pretending to be something He's not. The child's mind is asleep and he needs to wake up. Once awake, the mind remembers what it truly is and that nothing has changed. The mind returns to its natural state and joins with the shared mind of God. The dream of separation has no ability to change the reality of what the sleeping mind truly is. According to ACIM, salvation does nothing. Salvation merely salvation is merely the undoing, in the sense that your mind simply stops supporting your dream world of anger and fear. Salvation lets illusions go by no longer supporting them. The illusion that you could be something other than as God created you simply disappears. What the illusion hid is now revealed, and you reawaken to the truth that you remain as God created you. Salvation is the happy dream of reawakening to that truth. Salvation is the final dream with a different purpose and viewpoint. Therefore, salvation fosters a new perspective for your world based on the idea of love, forgiveness, and oneness. The world you perceive is transformed from a world of hate and fear to a world of mercy and love. This is the same shift in purpose for your world that was discussed in the forgiveness section that we just completed. In this final dream, our purpose is to give to the world its salvation rather than our condemnation. By granting salvation to all, we receive and acknowledge our own salvation. Time's almost over, and the return to the remembrance of God is only an instant away. We are at heaven's gate, where all illusions disappear and only heaven will remain. Your mind needs healing. When you claim you're not your higher self, your big S self, salvation is the healing of the split mind. A mind that fails to recognize its true identity is delusional. Just like Mr. Smith, who's forgotten that he's merely a human being pretending to be a dog, our insane mind needs to remember our true identity as our higher self, our big S self. Healing restores the split mind by remembering its true and eternal nature as Christ. The peace of God was given to God's Son the instant the split mind thought of war. What is war but an attack on your own identity as God's creation? A split mind is a sleeping mind that makes war upon your Christ nature based on your ego's misperceptions about what you are. Salvation is the healing or awakening of the sleeping mind to the truth that it has only been dreaming. Forgiveness brings about healing because it's the recognition of the truth that we remain God's beloved child even when we sleep. When asked, people often reply that they feel most loved when they are accepted just the way they are. Love is the acceptance of another without judgment, and thus love has no need to change, control, or fix another. Love allows and holds the truth for another without egoic conditions. Love may or may not perform the role another ego body had hoped it would play, because love simply follows the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Love does not follow the voice for fear. In our world of time and space, the term salvation is associated with the idea of being saved. Typically, in salvation, you are brought from a state of sin, conflict, and unhappiness into a new state of joy and redemption. Religious salvation assumes that someone has sinned and retribution needs to be made if heaven is to be obtained or regained. Salvation is another example of a common word that subconsciously engenders fear. since it assumes that paradise has been lost. The common definition of salvation supports the idea of sin, guilt, and fear that's associated with the ego's belief in lack, limitation, and separation. Salvation, like forgiveness, is an aspect of love that we could not experience in heaven, since there's no one to be saved there. Paradise was never lost. Only in the illusion of time could the need for salvation exist, because time is the illusion of pretending you're something you're not. That's key. Time is the illusion of pretending you're something you're not. In time, our egos can pretend we're something we or something else needs to be saved. Only in the illusion of time could a sleeping mind fail to realize its unity with the one self, or that it's the dreamer of the dream of lack, limitation, and separation. In the world of form, salvation, or the saving of another, is a specific example of helping. Salvation, or being helpful, is an attribute of love, yet it is something that cannot be experienced in heaven. To be helpful requires someone to pretend they truly need help. To save another requires someone to erroneously believe that they have sinned or could die. For you to experience the attribute of love that we call helpfulness, or saving another from their troubles, you need someone who's willing to play the role of requiring help. Our desire to participate in the game of separation has never been a problem. The game of separation allows us to demonstrate, in the world of form, aspects of love that cannot be experienced in heaven. In heaven, these attributes and terms are meaningless due to our true reality as part of the one self. Due to the abstract nature of a oneness of all that is, these terms have no function or purpose in truth. Differentiation is needed if one is to simulate the experience of the specific aspects of love that we call forgiveness or salvation. Like Mr. Smith, our problem with the game of separation is not the fact that we wanted to pretend we're something we're not. Our problem only arose when we failed to remember that we're merely playing a game, and that the game has no ability to change what we are. When we forgot to laugh and mistook the game as having real life or death consequences, fear was born within the minds of the players. Within our confused mind, the game now took on a reality of its own and became our provisional reality. The game of What Am I was designed to provide simulated experiences that we desired and were impossible to experience within the truth of the abstract oneself. Welcome, Miss Lee. Fantastic. The game, like Mr. Smith, our problem with the game of separation is not the fact that we wanted to pretend we were something we're not. Our problem only arose when we failed to remember that we're merely playing a game, and that the game has no ability to change what we are. When we forgot to laugh and mistook the game as having real life and death consequences, fear was born within the minds of the players. Within our confused mind, the game now took on a reality of its own and became our provisional reality. The game of What Am I was designed to provide simulated experiences that we desired and were impossible to experience within the truth of the abstract oneself. We desire to be love, not just know that we are love. We wanted to demonstrate the various aspects of love, and differentiation is required for that experience to be possible. By being love in form, we complete God, and the abstract one self knows itself. Remember, differentiation does not mean different. Differentiation just allows us to be aware of the various aspects of itself, which is only love. In time, salvation is the realization that no one needs salvation. This is why salvation does nothing. It's merely the ending of our ego's belief that we could be something other than as God created us, perfect, whole, and complete, part of the inseparable oneness of all that is. The final happy dream that brings salvation to your world is your sharing of the truth that sin, lack, limitation, and separation are not real. Your brothers and sisters are innocent and sinless. There is no one to save, for salvation is guaranteed by God and was never lost, only momentarily forgotten. So remember, each is on their own perfect path. Every single one of us is on their own perfect path and exactly where they need to be in their reawakening to the truth according to God's plan. In the dream of salvation, you need do nothing to fix, change, control, protect, or impress anybody else. You merely hold the truth that sleeping minds have temporarily forgotten what they are. The happy dream of salvation is similar to what Jesus said that he does. From A Course in Miracles, Jesus says, if you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing we're the same. If you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind. In the happy dream of salvation, our egoic mind needs to do nothing. We don't judge another or make them wrong for where they are in their journey of reawakening. We merely hold the truth for all, and when guided, extend a helping hand. We rest in the knowledge that only God's plan guarantees all will find their way home, and that the remembrance of God will heal the split mind. We trust the guidance of the Holy Spirit as we ask and follow what love would have us do. Salvation is the happy dream in which you realize that your egoic mind has nothing to do. You can drop all your ego's plans for your salvation, since salvation cannot be earned. God wills that your divine inheritance was never lost. You share the truth that all rests safely in God's love. With this granting of the truth of your brother's salvation, you receive your own salvation, and you now rest in the peace of God. That's the introduction to that special theme, What is Salvation? Tom's notes on that. And now I'm going to read lesson 240. And if you're following along in the books here, I'm in Tom's book on page 453. I'm in the blue book that the one that I started with was a blue book. And that is page 410, no, page 411, nope, page 412. There it is. Fear is not justified in any form. So if you feel like reading along, you can. Fear is deception. Fear attests that you have seen yourself as you could never be, and therefore look upon a world of egoic misperception, which is impossible. Not one thing in this world is true. It doesn't matter what the form in which the things of this world of perception may appear. It doesn't matter what the form in which the things of this world of perception may appear. All things you perceive are witnesses, but to your own illusions of yourself. Let us not be deceived today. We are the children of God. There is no fear in us, for we are each a part of love itself. Here comes the prayer for today. I love the way this one starts. How foolish are our fears! Would God allow his Son to suffer? Give us faith today and recognize God's Son in our brother and set God's Son free. Let us forgive our brother and God's Son in God's name, that we may understand the holiness of God's Son and feel the love for God's Son, which is God's own love as well. And the notes to lesson 240, fear is not justified in any form. If you're in fear, it means that you have forgotten that you are God's beloved child, with whom he or she, it is well pleased. You have allowed bodily thoughts to rise to the level of mind and made the belief that you are the body into your own provisional reality. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Fear is the deception that you could be something other than as God created you. There's not one thing in this world that your ego perceives correctly. By allowing yourself to be vulnerable, you teach yourself that you're actually invulnerable, unlimited spirit, and not some game token that we call the body. As mind or spirit, there are no outside forces that can rob you of your inner peace unless your mind allows it. Now I can see outside my typical areas of Clubhouse, and I see that we've got people joining us on Twitch now in greater numbers. And so if you want to be part of the conversation, I'll put a link in here and come join us on Clubhouse. We can have two-way conversations there that we can't really have in Twitch. And I open us up now to Tom and a little bit deeper exercise to bring this lesson, lesson 240, a little bit more into our daily consciousness so we can use it today to make our world a better place. Tom?
Thank you, Lee. This lesson 240, fear is not justified in any form, is the final of the lesson of the 10 set that's associated with salvation. We said that salvation, unlike the common definition, which was the idea that somehow you've probably lost your gift, your divine inheritance, and it had to be earned. Salvation, as defined by the Course, is just God's promise that everybody is guaranteed to reawaken to the truth and reclaim the divine inheritance that they perceived that they lost, that never had been lost because God had never judged us, always saw us as perfect, whole, and complete. In the introduction of A Course in Miracles, it says, "Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." And that's a very confusing statement to our egoic mind, because the idea that everything that exists or in this world of form, we perceive that to be real as opposed to unreal. And certainly if I'm an ant and someone steps on me and I get crushed, that would certainly seem like the ant was real, and therefore the crushing of the ant and its ceasing to be moving and being squished, it would appear that it was, obviously the real was threatened. And that again is because of the idea of the definition of what real is for Course in Miracles. And real is the changeless. So your reality is spirit. Your reality is that you remain part of that one self, and that this world, although it appears to be real, it's kind of like going to the movies. And if you've ever gone to a scary movie, it's very easy to get caught up on what's happening on that silver screen. And you start perceiving yourself to be a part of it. And the Course in Miracles says that the problem was not going to the movie. That was just an interesting adventure, a way that we could learn about ourselves. The problem was getting caught up and sucked into the drama and making that silver screen become your reality. And that is, in this case, what the Course is really talking about when it says that the movie, the idea of what you are, doesn't have the ability to change the truth. So, in these 10 lessons that we talked about on salvation, notice that the theme was really to reawaken to the truth that our salvation is really just one decision away. It's been guaranteed by God that we remain as God created us perfect, full, and complete. And all that we have to do is drop our egoic illusions and reclaim that truth that we remain God's beloved child. Now, it says in some of these lessons, the first one says, Father, I will but to remember you. The next one, be in my mind, Father, throughout the day. Otherwise, be aware that God has this promise and that you still are God's treasure. Lesson 233, I give my life to God to guide today. Otherwise, follow that inner voice. Know that this is a movie, and although we're all actors assigned roles to play our part, the role itself has no ability to change what we truly are. We can get shot. We can see the blood seem to drip out of the body, but you still exist because you are not the body. You are free. You are still as God created you, which is spirit. So these ideas of salvation, and the next one is Father. Today, I am your son again. Realize the truth of what you are. 235, God in his mercy wills that I be saved, that you reawaken to that truth, that you've never been lost. Uh, Lesson 236, interesting. I rule my mind, which I alone must rule. We need to become aware that we as decision makers have decided to play this game of what am I? And that we can transform it as the game is I am that, when we as decision maker decide to reclaim our birthright, that it's only our misperception that leads us into fear. 130 or 237. Now would I be as God created me, reclaiming your divine birthright. Realize that you are not the body, you are still free. 138. On my decision, all salvation rests, saying that I, as decision maker, have the ability to reclaim my divine birthright or reclaim salvation because it's never been lost. The glory of my Father is my own. It was yesterday's lesson. And that's saying that you are unconditional love, that you remain as God created you. And what God is what you are. All that you need to do is to give yourself permission to claim that identity. This final lesson on salvation fear is not justified in any form. Fear is false evidence. And this lesson says that the idea that anything here, not one thing in this world is true. Not one thing in this world, and this world is actually your world of private, individuated perception. If we look at time and space, physicality, it's the existence or the awareness of four dimensions. There's up, down, depth, which are the three dimensions of space. Then there's the dimension of time, which is the appearance that things change, that it moves from the past, future, the past, present, future. The astrophysicists, the uh, quantum physicists are telling us that now time appears to be all things out there, and it's just our awareness that time is not linear; it's always out there, all things that happen. So, but time is the measure of change, which is the fourth dimension of physicality, okay, that we can observe. The fifth dimension is the world of perception, which is our own perception. And we look at the four dimensions that we mentioned, and we now layer on our beliefs about what we're observing. And that is the dimension that we call our real world. It's the world of individuated perception. On a mass collective consciousness basis, we've created this world of form, this planet Earth. But on an individual basis, each one of us lives in our own private world of individuated perception. My world and your world differ. Why? Because we layer on our own beliefs on top of those other four dimensions, and therefore we view our world differently. Course in Miracles says that our senses are really thought confirmation devices. We perceive, we believe something to be out there. We tell our senses, go out and find that. The senses ignore all aspects that would perhaps contradict our belief and report back the one or two things that it can find that confirms our original belief. Senses are thought confirmation devices. The thoughts always come first. So, this last lesson, fear is not justified in any form, really talking about the realization that we create our own fear by believing wrongly that we are the body is us, that we are perhaps a sinner, that we are separate, that we lack something, and that we need something outside of ourselves to make us perfect, whole, and complete. The only thing we need is our relationship with God, and that relationship is not really a need, it's the realization that God is part of us, that our existence, our energy, our light uh, doesn't just come from God, it emanates from us because God is in each one of us. We are individuated aspects of the whole. So, this last one, fear is not justified in any form, is reawakening to the truth of what you really are, that you reclaim your divine birthright, that you realize that in this movie house that we're going to go to, that we're in right now, that there are 4 axioms that we need to be aware of. So why don't you get in a comfortable position and let's see if we can explore this idea that fear is not justified in any form. What we're going to do is maybe take a trip to the movies. So why don't you get in a comfortable position and just become aware of your breath. And we're just doing this to focus our attention and to realize that our essence, we have within us a decision maker, which is the aspect of consciousness. And it's our awareness where we wish to place our attention that we seem to become aware of and activate. So just watch the breath as it comes in and out. Perhaps you feel the rise and fall of the chest, the diaphragm moving up and down as the breath comes in and out of this game token we call the body. And as we become aware of that, we realize that as we breathe in this, we're really breathing in the truth that we are energy and that this is God's love. I breathe in the love of God and I realize that as I do that, I become more and more aware of the light within me, that my light, my energy, my essence, if you want to call that, becomes brighter as I place my attention on bringing more energy circuits to the realization of what I am. So as I breathe in that light, that energy, that life force, whatever you want to call it, that prana, that is moving in and activating that energy light bulb that is within you. See your light become brighter and brighter, illuminating the room. But you are the awareness. And let's move our awareness outside and leave the body. And let's just hover above the body. As you hover there, look down and see the body and realize that as you observe it, that is your game token. That's your costume that we need to be able to use as a neutral communication device to communicate and play in this game board of time and space. But that's not us. We are light. We are this essence. What we're going to do is take that essence and let's move it out to your favorite movie house. Maybe it's down the street, maybe it's in the town, or maybe it's just down in your family room or wherever where you have your big screen TV that you watch. So let's go to that movie house of your mind. And as we enter it, let's get comfortable in the seat. And perhaps maybe before the movie starts, let's take our mind and if we want some popcorn or whatever to our favorite candy, let's go ahead and make sure we've got it with us as we wait for the movie to start. We're comfortable in our chairs. We've got our popcorn. Now the lights grow dim and we start seeing the silver screen light up. And as we do that, we see images appearing on that screen. And what we'll do is you get to choose the images, the movie that you want to see. So today, pick a movie, but let's today limit our choices, or let's pick maybe a scary movie, a movie that perhaps you've played in the past in which you perceived yourself to be the body and that you felt that there was something to fear. It was a fearful movie, or a movie that engendered fear. And let's project that out on the screen and start replaying this fearful movie. And let's watch it unfold, whatever that movie is. And it could be a past experience that you had that was uncomfortable, that caused you supposedly pain, suffering. For this lesson says fear is not justified in any form. Fear is false evidence appearing real. But that movie, that experience seems so real. So let's replay it in that projector of our mind on that screen. And let's watch that unfold. And as you get caught up in that movie, you realize that you kind of get sucked in and you start reliving that past moment, those past experiences. And you start feeling what you felt in the past, that you feel that fright, that disconnect, that feeling that someone perhaps had let you down, that you were vulnerable, that you were a victim, that you needed someone to do something and that they let you down, or perhaps that you felt that you let yourself down, that you didn't perform the way you like, that this whole movie turned out not only scary, but actually hurtful, harmful. Uh, Realize as you become caught up that there's a voice inside you, your parent, your Holy Spirit next to you, sitting next to you, telling you, find the edges. Remember, look at the silver screen. Note that this movie stops at the edge of the screen. You're not the movie. You're not there. You're watching on film projection. It's not you. You're not the role that you're seeing. You're still in the bleachers. You're still in that comfortable chair. Have some popcorn. Realize you're at a movie house. There's nothing on that screen that could cause you to lose your inner peace unless you forget the truth of what you are. You chose the movie you're playing in your mind. You have the power to turn off the movie, to realize I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created. Nothing outside myself has the ability to rob me of my own inner peace unless I choose to allow it, unless I choose to get caught up, sucked in to the story, the actors playing on the stage, and start believing that these roles are something that can cause me to suffer pain. These are learning lessons. These are valuable experiences that I realize bring me to this moment of reawakening, to realizing that nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. And herein lies the peace of God. I still remain as God created me. I'm in the movie house of my own making. I can choose to remember the truth that I am God's beloved child. Fear is not justified on any form on that silver screen. It's merely a light show designed to teach me the truth that I am God's treasure, that I, as decision maker, exist with or without a game token we call the body, that I still exist. I am light, I am energy, and that I am invulnerable spirit. What I'm seeing on the silver screen, what I'm seeing in this world of individuated perception is merely a projection of my own misunderstanding or misperception of what I really am. When I realize that I am not the roles that have been assigned to me, that I remain unlimited spirit, I realize that on this silver screen, I am invulnerable. What's out there has no ability to change the truth. I am pure energy, part of the one self, part of the indivisible mind of God. My salvation has been guaranteed. My reawakening is one decision away. I, as decision maker, have the power to turn off the project and go home, not get caught up, sucked up in the drama that appears to be playing forth in the screen. Now I realize that these are all experiences are simply learning lessons, experiences that I desire to reawaken to the truth that nothing can cause me to lose my inner peace unless I allow. I control the movie project. I can cut the power, and I cut the power of all my fears, all my pain, when I forgive myself for attending or getting caught up in these dramas and making them real within my own mind. I unplug the energy circuit of that negative experience, keeping the learning lesson that says that whatever it was designed to teach me is the truth, that I remain God's treasure. Just correct and forgive myself for having to go to that movie, that act in that play, and realize I remain as God created. I learned that I am God's treasure, that I need do nothing. Salvation was never lost. It's my divine inheritance. And just like Mr. Smith pretending he's a dog, I now reawaken to the truth. I am God's treasure. I turn off all that energy going to my mind's projector of the belief in lack, limitation, and separation. I turn up the lights. So as I breathe in the love of God, I breathe in the energy that activates these lights at the movie house. And now the lights start illuminating the whole movie theater. I see that silver screen. It's gone blank because I pulled the plug. of my beliefs and my own sinful. I was never a sinner. I was always God's beloved child, going on an exciting adventure of reawakening and honing my skills in being love informed. The lights are bright now. I realize that I am totally free from all my past beliefs that I could be something other than as God created. I am light. Now I realize that the light in the theater is coming from me. I am light. I am energy, pure potential energy, part of the holographic mind of God. I can light my world. And when I light my world, this world of seeming hate and fear becomes a brighter. It becomes my play school in which I can be or imagine anything I want in perfect safety. For I remain as God created me. I can pretend I'm a body. I can even get caught up in the drama. But ultimately, there's a voice inside of my higher self, the Holy Spirit, placed in me that will always remind me and advise me to turn those lights back on, to realize that the silver screen is merely a game board for our desires to experience various aspects so that we can demonstrate what love would have me do, that fear is not real. I can turn on the lights, remember the truth of what I am, with or without a body. I still exist. Birth is my essence moving into a game token we call the body. Death is my essence, my existence, awareness leaving the game token we call the body. I still exist. I am energy. I am light, and nothing can extinguish my light, the truth of what I am. Today, let's leave that movie house and let's go back to where we've placed our body and start placing your attention back on the game token we call the body, realizing that today has been given to us as stepping stones to reawaken to the truth that you are invulnerable spirit. Fear is false evidence appearing real. And if fear takes hold of us today, ask and remember this truth. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created. Nothing sources my experience but me. And nothing can cause me to lose my inner peace unless I choose to allow it. And remember then to mind the edge, to realize that these are just roles we're playing. Actors strutting their stuff on stage, and that you remain as God created you. You're not the role. Neither is your sister, nor your brother, or our world. They're just props, stage hands, various co-actors, actors strutting their stuff so that I today get to demonstrate what I truly am. And I can light my world with the truth. So today, reconnect as you bring in that breath of life. You bring in your awareness to the body. Reconnect with your essence with that game token you call the body. Breathe in the truth that you as decision maker get to play this game. Your part in the grand awakening of the truth of what you really are. And today you reclaim the reality that you are light energy. And today, go about your day, God, being God, and let your light shine forth and watch fear dissipate in time and space in this world of perception. Your function is forgiveness, your purpose is love, and your destiny is the peace of God. Today, we'll demonstrate our function, which is love. And what love would have us do is always make sure that we learn to control, manage, and eliminate fear. First in ourselves, and once we've got our own fear under control, to go on and help anybody else reduce their fear. And in this way, you demonstrate being love informed and fulfill your purpose. Today, let's reclaim our destiny and remember that fear is not justified in any form, for you are not form. You are part of the one self, the holographic mind of God. And with or without this thing we call a form or a body, you remain God's treasure. Create a great day for yourself and your world. Namaste. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Wonderful, special time, a little meditation on this. Fear is not justified in any form. This is like a get out of jail free card. Everything that we do, that we experience fear in, we can learn that it's optional. And if you choose that it's just an optional thing, you could bounce like you're on the biggest trampoline in the world and not be worried about it. And so that's what I'm going to watch Dean do. I hope you guys have a great day and it was helpful. We've got a nice conversation here if you feel like contributing, and I'd love to know what you're thinking.
Good morning, everybody. I always jump in with ideas that happened the day before. I did experience something yesterday that is related to this lesson, and thank God we have this book because otherwise I will be like getting myself really in a dark place. Yesterday during the afternoon, my daughter went um, with um with her dad to yeah to take a time with him and his girlfriend and his girlfriend kid. So I was here by myself and I was resting and I was saying like, oh my God, this is great because now I have the time to just chill out and watch TV. I had already done things, chores about my laundry and things like that in the morning, so I was really free. And suddenly, this feeling my daughter is playing right now video games with Dean. It's funny because I'm here talking to you, and my daughter is also connected with Dean from afar. So, um, I was feeling yesterday like my ego was pulling me down. When I got the time, this is the most challenging part, I guess, of our bodily experience because when we have free time for ourselves to be alone and to be okay, it's like the perfect time to have an ego party. So my ego was was like, yeah, now we are alone. Now we get to think about all the things that you're missing out. And my ego starts to tell me like, well, now you're here. You don't know how you're gonna end up going. Sorry, my daughter. Sorry, my daughter is having a party
Dude,
in video
Steve's doing
games
the
with
same
Dean.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. So my ego was saying like, oh my God, now who knows when you're gonna be back at your place because your place is not longer there. Your place is with Lee. So who knows when you're gonna be there? And who knows when you're gonna be able to see him again? And I start to miss him really dearly. And I was just watching these thoughts, and I was saying, my God, what is this fear that I have if I have this beautiful setting right now? In my window, there was this beautiful day, the nature, the pool. I was so relaxed. And I was like, what a weird situation. And I could call Lee. Of course, I could call him and talk to him, but I rather not to do it because I figure if I do that, I will making this real. I need to really go through this in order for me to understand what is going on because I know that I have his love. I don't need him to be like physically present in order for me to feel love. And my ego was kicking and screaming like, no, you will always be apart from love because when you're with him, then you will not feel your daughter. And I was saying, and who cares? I will be always apart in some form. So I was really
If it
taking my
Tiptoe.
wasn't
time.
either of us, it would be a third party, something
It will
else
be
that
my
we
family
could
in
complain
Colombia.
about.
It's funny
Exactly.
because it will be my mom in Colombia. It would be my sister. It would be my friends. Whatever it is,
That
I
ego
have been always
complainer
an
will always come
expat.
up with something.
Yeah,
My goodness.
yeah. So I was really having this huge sense of loneliness, and I said to myself, this is such a weird thing to have today because the lesson of yesterday's lesson says the glory of my father is my own, and I wasn't feeling it. So I figured, well, this should be something that I will have to deal with the lesson of tomorrow, and that is true, and that is true. Fear is not justified in any form. As long as we understand that if we are here in these bodies, we will always feel in the level of the form incomplete. And in that way, we need to just make a choice in our mind to not be driven by those thoughts, but instead giving them up to the higher source, to the Holy Spirit, or whatever. You will have some sort of feedback from the level of the form that you are never alone. And what happened with me is that I didn't want it to pull my ego into this party with Lee. So I just wrote Lee to say to him that I miss him and that I love that I have his love. But I didn't want it to move like further away in that conversation. And he replied to me something that really gave me like peace of mind. And I could feel at ease and I could understand that my body doesn't like to be like at ease. It's really funny because when you are at ease, you realize that there's nothing that you need to do. And so it's kind of disappearing in some form. You don't need to do anything and you don't need to be anything. But that idea or that expression is so fearful because it's truly be still. Being still for me, it's really being still for me is really like disappearing in some form. So when I have free time, when I don't have to do anything, my mind doesn't let me be, doesn't let me be. So it's something that we need to take really go in a deeper meaning because there's something there to be forgiven deeply when you are physically alone, and that could be just the idea that you are here. or that could be just the idea that you made this choice to come here. But as long as we are in the process of finding out why we came here in the first place, we have to just move forward day by day with this kind of feelings that are coming from just one single thought, and the thought is there to make you choose again, to help you heal your mind in some form, that you are a spirit instead of the body. And then I was in this, and I didn't want to call Lee, and my daughter came back. And when my daughter came back, I felt like, oh yes, now I feel a lot. And it's really interesting how our body help us to, I mean, our body help the ego or help the Holy Spirit. That's it. So you get to choose which master does your body wants to serve, because if you let yourself to go through those kind of thoughts that you cannot be alone because you will feel the entire emptiness, or that you cannot stop doing things around, then your body is at the service of the ego, and you will have more conflict afterwards, because or you will feel restless. I mean, you will not get your rest, and then you will create more tiring, or more energy consumption that doesn't need to happen, or you just feel miserable by being alone, and we are never alone. So this is a challenge. Fear is not justified in any form, and I wonder also, and I know if this is something that go through your minds as well. I wonder also why it's so easy for us to understand the anger control. I mean, we do understand that we need to control our anger, because the anger is like this explosion of energy. But when it comes to really be peaceful, good, and still with ourselves without any company at all, from my point of view, that it's even harder. I mean, it's easy for me to control the anger that controlling my ego when I am completely alone and being still, being like, okay, let's be still. That stillness part of my humanity for me is really, really, really challenging. It's like disappearing in some form, and it's really challenging. For me, fear is not justified in any form. It has to do with the stillness. I mean, if you think that you need to do anything when you are not doing anything, then there's something deeply that needs to be forgiven. And I'm just figuring out what is that. And it probably will be the single one idea of separation, but the mind needs to have an experience around it in order to let it go. So I wanted to share this because yesterday I had my my experience to help me understand this lesson. And I think the deeper fear that we got is really losing ourselves in the stillness. So I don't know if this makes sense. This is what I got from yesterday and what I'm
I
experiencing
It
today.
makes sense to me. I mean, I feel maybe another simple way of putting it is our egos are struggling to feel alive and figure out what that means to them. And maybe that's off base, but it feels like for me, my ego is either always complaining, looking for separateness, trying to live in the future or the past, and the direction that it pulls me is invariably away from peace, away from knowing that everything's okay, and away from the reality of the truth. Yeah. Well, for what it's worth.
Yeah, it's like being left behind. I mean, I was thinking, but Vera is okay, she's happy. And I start to see like the picture of my ex-husband with his girlfriend and the two kids, and they were all happy. And Lee up there with Dean and Gracie, and they were happy. And I was here and I wasn't feeling happy. So I'm missing my ego was saying, like, I'm missing the love party. So it's really funny how the ego is really trying to pull us down when we are in stillness. So I don't know if you have these experiences, but I did have it yesterday. So for me, it's still a lesson, ongoing lesson that I'm figuring out. And yeah, that's true. I mean, the body wants to feel alive, but the feeling alive doesn't come from the body, in fact, comes from the mind. So there's something in the mind that needs to be forgiven in order to feel okay being still and apart from other bodies. That it's something huge there. It's my feeling right now.
Adriana, you are something else. This lesson is a beautiful lesson. It starts off with 3 words. Fear is deception. And I know you've heard me before quote this book that's 2,500 years old called The Art of War. What is the art of war? Deception. Same word, same word. Fear is deception. The art of war is fear. If someone wants to try and control me, he finds a way to deceive me to look this way, and he does something from the other way, so I don't see it. It's like the phrase we often use, well, I didn't see that coming. When we are alone in the beginning of this process, a lot of times we don't see this ego of ours getting ready to do something, and we don't see it coming. Once you get into this enough and you keep looking at these words, that's why it takes a whole year to get this deep into our sense of ourselves, of our feelings, of how we relate to other people. There's a lot of different ways that this applies, and we test it because that's what we are. We test it. Anything that is deceptive is something that's going to make us feel afraid. When you are thinking where you were, Adriana, in that particular location, but everybody else that you love is not there, then if you think of what you love and want to be with, if the bodies aren't there, that doesn't mean the love isn't there, right? That's the deception. The deception was you don't need those bodies for you to feel loved. All you need is memories, and you can remember it. So what do we do about that? We're being deceived. In essence, we are at war with who? Ourselves. We are deceiving ourselves into thinking that all that stuff isn't working that they taught me about in the morning or in the evening or whenever we listen to Course in Miracles or whatever. So here's a way to kind of put all this together. All of the fear ideas, all of the war ideas, all of the shameful ideas that we have, all of the guilty feelings we have, all of them are what make up what we call the ego. It's kind of like a golf ball if you ever took the cover off. It's got a gazillion numbers of just rubber bands and so whatever they have there, I don't know. That's what this ego thing is. It's made up of all of this deception, and it's there because it got caught up in our mind. We let it in. We didn't know what it was going to do, and it's allowed us to entertain fear and other things in our life. We don't need it. We can put that all and a few others in the trash, and we can change our lives that quickly because we don't accept anything that comes in the form of fear. If it's an idea clothed in fear, it's deception. It's an illusion. That's what this lesson is saying. We want to get rid of all of our illusions. Let us not be deceived today. We are the Son of God. There is no fear in us, but we are each a part of love itself. And in the beginning, the very first statement of this book is there are only two emotions, love and fear. Fear is the deceiver. Fear is deception. Right here, we said that today. So this ties it in from the beginning up to really 2/3 of the way through the book. We're at 240. We're getting to 360, 365. That's 2/3. When we accept the fact that anything we fear is an illusion because we are truly children of God, and God always has our back because God is love. That is what's real. The ego is fear. That is an illusion. When we simply take those two ideas and put them in front of us, we don't have anything to fear. We know it's all good. Those are my thoughts for today. Come on, Rosa. I know you got something to say.
You know what? I was just about to say that. We really